Okay, so this is probably quite a quick one, and we're going to be looking at components and specifically how to extract the value of components so you can use it in your apps. Now, we're going to do quite a simple one. I've got this app here. It's a food ordering app, and if we go to the customize page, so this is where a user can customize their order, and you can see there we've got a component which is a counter. But basically, what happens is when the user clicks the plus button, the number goes up, and when they click the minus button, the number goes down. That's fairly obvious. But how do we get that information out of the component? Because we can click up and down on the numbers here to create the value we need, but we can't access that directly from the page because the value of that is tied to the component. Now, what I'm going to show you is going to work whatever the component. I just happen to be this is just a simple counter. So in the first instance, to build components, basically you go to the component section, and obviously I've only got one in this one, but if we wanted to add a new one, you just click on the add button and click on a new component. You can create a blank one, or you can pick one from the list there that Flutterflow have already built. Now, the reason you can use components is because you can use them over and over again in your app, and it just modulating things, so you don't have to rebuild anything all the time. So there's loads of uses for these sort of things. So let's go into the component itself. So we've got here, so just a simple component. We've got the two buttons with some actions, and then we've got a parameter, which I'll come to in a second, and we've got a component state variable. Now, basically what we need to do, so with this being a counter, as we go up and down on the counter, we are writing it to the component state variable, and we want to access that from our app externally within the page, and we do that by using something called a callback. So what I'm going to do now is run through how it works. So if we go to the actions on the buttons, we're updating the component state, incrementing it by 1 when we click the add button, and when we click the minus button, we are updating the value by -1, so we're taking 1 off the value. Now what I've got in this instance, because you can't have I didn't want a negative value, so basically because this is a menu app, you can't have a minus amount of items on your order. So therefore what I'm saying is, if the value is equals 0, we don't want to do anything else. You can't go any further, but if it's greater than 0, you can keep updating. And then on both instances, we then go and execute the callback. So what this does, on our component parameter, we want a parameter, we need to give it a name, and the type is an action. So down there, you've got the usual ones, integers and strings and all the rest of it, but we want an action, which is the one right at the bottom, and it needs to have a parameter name, obviously, and then the type, which is an integer. So our action parameter is a count, and it's type integer, because ultimately that's what we're creating with the up and down on the button. So what we're doing then on the plus and minus buttons, we are executing a callback. So in fact, let's just add an action in here. In the utilities section, you've got execute callback, and that's what we're doing. And that is the parameter we've created here called value action. And if you remember, the value of the parameter we called count and the type integer, and the value we want to put in there is basically the component state. So component state is the value. So as you can see, that's exactly what I've done on this one that's already there. So and what happens is then that is assigning the value every time you click the button. It is assigning that value to the callback, and the count parameter, it's assigning the value of the integer that you're creating on the component value there to the callback. So then it also does the same on the minus button. We're executing the callback in exactly the same way. We're assigning the value of our component state to our count parameter. Now then, if we go back to our page, and on our page here you can see this is the customizing the menu option, and you can see we've got them dynamically created in the list view. So down here, so basically you can see this section. We need to, if we want to access the component dynamically in a list, we need to provide an identifier key for each one, which is easy enough in this instance because basically we are just calling, we've got an ingredients list. So this is the customizing your order part of the menu. So basically if you want to remove, something from your burger or add a topping to your pizza or whatever it may be, and each ingredient is a row in a Supabase table. So we're just using the field ID for that particular ingredient as our counter unique key. So each one of these counters has got a unique key, which is the Supabase row it is attached to in terms of how the children are dynamically created. And then to get the value of it into our app, onto the page, down here, basically what we need to do is open up the action flow editor, and we are setting our page state. We're calling it count local. I'll go on to that in a second and what we're doing. And we're setting the value, and the value to set is basically the value for our unique key, which is that particular component. So what that will do, we can update a page state or obviously an app state or whatever with the value of the counter. And obviously again, you can use this for any components. It just so happens this is a simple one. And we're going to use that to basically add the items to the basket. So for instance, say it is a pizza and somebody wanted triple cheese, for instance, they'd click it 3 times, so it's to 3. And then what we've done on here, which is not really related to the component as such, basically we are looping through. So if you remember count local, we've got a loop count. I'm going to do loops in a separate video. I'll probably actually just use this example, to be honest, because it's nice and simple. But we've got a page state which we call in the loop count, i.e. it updates every time the loop runs its course. And then count local, if you remember, is what we've assigned the callback value to. And so as long as once the loop count eats the callback value, then the loop will break and it will no longer do this. And what that's doing is just adding items to the order. Hopefully that makes sense. It's dead straightforward. So what I'll do now is stick it into test mode and we'll just add some things to the basket and you'll see how it works. But basically you access it via a callback, and at the bottom of the properties here, this is where you add the actions to access the callback and assign it to a variable on your page or an app state. And if it's dynamically created, you will need to add the unique key. But if it's dynamically created, you'll obviously get in a list of data from somewhere, so that's an easy thing to do. If it's not dynamically created, or it's like a checkout page and you can just go up and down on the counter for the amount of pairs of trainers you want to buy or whatever, then obviously you don't need to do the unique key bit, but you still access it via the callback on the value action. And like I say, this is a simple counter, but you can use this for any component. So let's just go into test mode. Okay, so we're on our customization page. So we want to add the tacos to our meal, and also we want to add some, we don't want guacamole, and you can see, as I said, we can't go past 0. And if we want to add extra cheese, 3 lots of cheese, and then if we add that to our order, an item added to order, and then if we just go to the checkout, as you can see, we've got our meal and our 3 lots of cheese, and that is based on getting the counter value from the callback and running a loop over that amount to get the amount of cheese toppings that we want. That's basically what we've done there, and it's all done in here, and using the callback, assign it to the page state there, which goes through the loop, and then once again in the counter itself we are defined a parameter which is a type action, and it's in this instance count integer. It could be anything obviously, but we've got a count integer, and we're assigning the component state value, which is essentially just the number in the box, and that changes dynamically with the incrementation of the number in the button, and then we're executing the callback to send it back to the page. That's how it works. So this is a dead easy example. If you've got a complex example you'd like me to go over, I'm more than happy to do that. Just drop that in the comments and I will look into it. But as a simple example, this is perfect. So hopefully that helps, and I will speak to you in the next video.